Hello everyone and welcome back to Clinger 2's channel. Today I'm going to be bringing you a Exodia deck that I made myself. And this has gotten me to gold 4 as of now. The highest I've gone to is gold 3. I'm also learning more about the game as well. I'm not super familiar with a lot of these decks, so I've been misplaying quite a bit. But I do feel like if you were actually to play this relatively well, consistently, you would be able to rank up eventually to plat. So without further ado, let's just get into the deck. So first off, we're going to get the Exodia pieces. So we get all the pieces here. As everyone knows, you get 5 pieces, you win the game. Then they have to be in your hand. You got Swift Scarecrow, so this just denies your opponent the battle phase, and then it ends their turn. It only goes into main phase, and then most of the time they end their turn after that. But that's pretty much what happens there. Maxi, it ends your opponent's turn, or you draw a lot of cards. The way the game works, special summoning is a big deal, so this just gets you a lot of cards regardless, if they just keep playing their turn. So you got Sangan and Witch. These two cards are going to search out your Exodia pieces, and they have to be on the field and then destroyed and then go to the graveyard in order for their abilities to be proc to search out the Exodia pieces. And then destroy all monsters on the field, which is Dark Hole. Very good card. This will actually benefit you as well. So if you need to erase a monster on the field, or you're one piece of Exodia away from winning, then you put a Witch or Sangan down on your turn, and if they haven't procced yet of that specific card, then you play a Dark Hole, and then you just blow up your field, and then blow up their field, and then you blow up a piece of Exodia and win. Monster Reborn, you target one monster in other player's graveyards, and you special summon it. This is good because later I'll show you now. So this card, the Witch Apprentice, takes 2 dark monsters to summon. And what happens is you'll use Witch and you'll use Sangan. And with these 2 cards, I'll be able to summon this monster, but this monster doesn't really matter. Really, it's just killing these monsters and putting them in the graveyard, which will proc their effect. And then special summoning it with Monster Reborn was really good, because then if you have like Sangan out, or if you have Witch out, then you summon the other one that's in your graveyard. Special summon the Witch Apprentice. Boom, you got 2 pieces of Exodia. When Witch Apprentice dies, she'll give you Witch or Sangan back to your hand, whichever one you prefer, depending on your hand that's in its current state. Then you'll grab it to your hand, and then you just basically repeat the cycle. You play a Witch face down, or you put a Sangan face down, defense position. You got Upstart Goblin. Your opponent gains 1,000 life points. You draw 1 card. Great card. Terraform, you add one field spell card from your deck to your hand. Gold Sarcophagus. This is probably one of the few cards in this deck you can take out and do whatever you want with it. You can maybe just add another card into it, because it takes a little bit to activate, and sometimes you might need a better position later. But basically, you banish 1 card from your deck, and then 2 turns later you get it back to your hand. So you can use this if it's your first turn. You know that you don't have enough time to basically if it's your first turn, 90% of the time you're not going to have that many pieces of Exodia in your hand to really win the second turn. So if you have this in your hand the first turn, you'll be able to actually just get a free Exodia piece 2 turns later, which is about the time you're going to need to get everything in the first place. So it's not horrible if you draw first, but if you draw like 3, 4 turns, 5 turns in, it's not that great anymore. Potter Duality, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and then you draw 1 from there, but then you can't special summon from that the rest of the turn. So it's a good card. The only thing is you can't use Fusion Summon, which is also another card that's going to be pretty vital to this deck, which is paired with Sangan, or Sanwitch, Sanwitch, which is Sangan. The fusion requirement is Sangan and Witch of the Black Forest. So you use Fusion Deployment. It searches out whichever fusion material the card specifically lists. So it searches out Sangan or Witch of the Black Forest in this instance, and you'll be able to get the opposite version, or you get the opposite card of the one you have on the field with this card. The only downside is you can only fusion summon the turn that this card is played. So you have to wait a whole turn. Hopefully your opponent doesn't kill your field, and then you could potentially link summon and do Witch Apprentice to get your 2 pieces of Exodia. Worst comes to worst, that doesn't happen, but you still get a piece of Exodia. If you have Monster Reborn, you Monster Reborn back onto the field, the one that got killed, if that's the case, and then you Witch Apprentice into that, and then you just got 3 pieces of Exodia, and pretty much just won the game most of the time at that point. 1 day apiece. Each player draws 1 card, and neither player takes damage from their opponent until the end of the turn. So basically when you play this, you won't take damage, your opponent won't take damage their turn, and then after that the game returns to normal as far as battle damage goes. Which is really good for this deck because pretty much this entire deck is built around getting these cards out, drawing with chicken game or Upstart Goblin. And then once you do that, and then between those turns that you're not drawing or you just don't have cards to play, you're playing cards like Swift Scarecrow to basically interrupt them, playing cards like Darkhold to blow up their field, playing cards like Torrential Tribute to blow up their field, playing cards like One Day of Peace to basically get rid of their battle phase. And that's pretty much how this deck works. You're trying to stall until you get Exodia. This card is situational, can break your hand, but when it works very well. If your opponent has activated a monster effect during your main phase, it has to be your main phase. It can't be after that. You draw 2 cards. So basically what you would do is if you had like a pot, let's say you have a pot of Prosperity, you have a pot of Duality, you want to bait out a Ash Blossom, or you want to bait out a Maxi with a Fusion Deployment, or a Monster Reborn, any of those, and then basically whenever that card gets procced, you'll be able to use this to draw 2 cards. Or if they have a card on the field that, let's say you're fighting a Sky Striker deck and you kill one of their Link monsters and they summon Ray, well that's a card effect that's from the graveyard, so that technically considers a card effect, so then you would be able to draw 2 cards. Very good card, especially in this format. Part of Prosperity, you banish 6 cards from your extra deck, and then you look at the top 6 cards of your deck, add one of them to your hand. Very simple, straightforward, very good card. The only downside is you can't draw more cards this turn. Now this one is Sarcophagus, can be kind of taken out. It's up to you. The only reason I say this card in particular is because it doesn't let you draw, which in this deck, drawing is a very big deal. So Chicken Game comes up next. Basically, you draw 1 card for 1,000 life points, and with this deck, life points don't matter as long as you win the game. You go down to 200 life points, it doesn't matter. Literally you just win the game. Your win condition is Exodia, so literally dealing damage and worrying about your health doesn't matter. And then sometimes you'll get lucky enough, and if your opponent doesn't know that you can destroy this card on their turn, and they attack you, they won't even take any damage, because the lower the life points you have compared to your opponent, you won't take any damage, or you just Upstart Goblin into them. And pretty much with this deck, you're always going to be lower than them, so if they don't destroy this on their turn, then you just don't get damage that turn. Torrential Tribute, this is a great card to have just in general. I don't know why it's a rare, but buy it while you still can. When the monster is summoned, destroy all monsters on field. It's just a good card. It's basically Darkhold, but in a trap form, and yeah, it doesn't proc immediately, but it procs 9 times out of 10 when you need it to. So it's a very good card to have. You destroying your own field in this deck is very much not an issue. Pretty much everything in this deck is revolving around the graveyard effects, so proccing it in the graveyard is all that matters. Getting your cards there is all that matters. So it benefits you more than you would think for this deck specifically. Skill Drain is just a great card to have in general. I would just recommend crafting this card. Basically, you pay 1,000 life points and you negate all effects on the field, including your monsters and their monsters. But for this in particular, Witch and Sangan, their abilities proc in the graveyard, so they're not on the field when their abilities proc, so therefore they can't proc their abilities. So it doesn't affect you, it just affects them. And most of the time when you play Skill Drain, you can brick decks really badly, to the point where they can't even play the game pretty much. So yeah, that's pretty much the entire deck. It works very well for the most part. It does have a lot of weaknesses, which it's just how Exodia decks work that aren't the insta-turn win decks. You're pretty much leaving yourself open to banishments. Basically, if they banish your Witch or Sangan, it puts an extreme caveat onto what you can do. You can get Ash Blossom and stuff like that. Maxi is very nice though, because Maxi doesn't really affect this deck at all. Nibiru doesn't affect this deck ever. You'll never have enough special summons to get a Nibiru activated. If you do that, you probably didn't play the deck right, to be honest. But yeah, so I'm just gonna start rolling the film. Thank you guys for tuning in, and check me out on Twitch at Community Plays Games. Or Community Play Games. So yeah, have a good day everyone. Thank you.